Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you. Looking for a bold way to boost your business? Advertise with Silverline Comics, reaching readers across the U.S. and around the world. Affordable rates, passionate fans, and national and international exposure, all packed inside thrilling, action-packed comics. All ads must be PG-13, perfect for reaching all ages. Spots are limited. Grab your ad space today and become part of the adventure. Silverline Comics, where adventure lives and your brand thrives. Email us at silverlinepublishingllc@gmail.com for more information. And make mine Silverline.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. I am Jose Fuentes, artist for Silverline Comics and temporary host while Tim is enjoying some quality time at home. I'm joined by Ron Fortier. Say hi, Ron.
Howdy.
And Brent Larson.
Hello.
So tonight we're talking about lettering. Lettering makes the comic. And if you're anything like me, when you first started reading comics, lettering just kind of flew right by and wasn't even really something you even thought about. Like, you open the book, there's the art, and I mean, that's how it was for me. Appreciating the story didn't come until, after, as I got a little bit older, and then appreciating the process of making a comic book, including lettering. That didn't come until I went to art school and truly understood and appreciated lettering a book.
Oh yeah, I mean I appreciate your comments about not noticing it. All right, because actually that's the key to good lettering. All right, I mean my analogy of lettering to me is like a music score in a film. All right. If you've got a decent music score, then it should be one of these subliminal things that enhances the mood of the scenes playing out on the screen. But again, fits the scene, doesn't disrupt you, pull you out of the story. All right. You don't want to have a romantic scene with a couple, holding hands and declaring their love for each other. And you've got action, trumpets playing in the background and blah, 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 blah. Right. So that the score becomes, like I says, another element of the storytelling, but you shouldn't notice it at all All right, until there's that moment when, yeah, okay, there's an action sequence and you can do an Indiana Jones march or whatever. Lettering is exactly the same thing. All right, I mean, in this game of writing comics for almost 50 years, over 50 years now, right? It's like we were talking before we came on air. It really wasn't until like about 10, 12 years ago that I began to truly appreciate what good lettering does, right? And its importance to a good comic. And I mean, basically, it's the marriage of two artistic sensibilities. And I printed up a few things that I wanted to play real quick that I think our listeners hopefully will get a kick out of. And that's basically what we're talking about is literature and art. So a few years back, I did a 6-page Brother Bones short story. Artist Joe Arnold did the artwork, and Rob Davis came on board and did the lettering. Okay, so here's a page of the script. This is page 4. All right, now I write full script. So basically, it's this what happens on the panel, exposition, the dialogue, etc., etc., etc. All right, so Joe gets a hold of that. Joe goes to work in his studio, and a little while later, this is that page 4. This is how I set it up, or, basically described, and this is how he interpreted it visually. So again, this is what we've got. We've got literature and art, but they are two separate entities. Along comes Rob Davis, looks at the script, looks at the art, and suddenly we've got captions and word balloons, and we have a story. We have a comic book. And that doesn't happen without the lettering.
That's right.
There you go. I love good lettering. And you know what? Let's talk about the opposite end of that, right? Bad lettering is the worst nightmare in the world. All right. It's when you've written something and you get the final page and the letterer has put the word balloons over the guy's head or over the background that you wanted to show something, or has absolutely no clue of what they're doing.
Oh man, I've definitely seen my fair share, and in the small amount of time, of working on comics, just some bad lettering as well. Obviously, we're not going to mention any names, but
no.
But if you're going and creating your own comic book, definitely do your research on lettering. On every aspect of making a comic book in general, but definitely don't overlook the lettering. It's not as easy as just writing, putting bubbles and putting words in them. It's more than that. It really is in regards to it's basically a dance with the art of the page. The lettering and the word balloons are really kind of a dance around the art to help guide and accentuate, guide the eye as it's flowing through the story. And
yeah, right. I mean, it is an art form. It really is. A good letterer is an artist.
Yep.
All right. I mean, basically, he steps into a page illustrated by another artist, and he does have a goal in mind, and that's to enhance that page. To, again, like we said, the little example I showed is merge it with the script. But at the same time, going back to that original theme, if he or she does their job correctly, the reader's going to pick it up and get to groove and love the art, which is, this is a visual medium. We all love comics because of the artwork, all right? So if you're a decent letterer, then any young reader, whatever, is going to pick up a comic book and read the book and just literally just read over those letters and captions. I've yet to meet a comic fan who put down a book and went, wow, that was great lettering. It's not what you want to have happen. It's subliminal. It's working, underneath those sensibilities of letting you appreciate the story, but actually sink in the artwork, totally.
Yeah. Well, I will say, let's say in the 90s, lettering, I remember I actually have a few, not a lot of them, but a few of the old EC books. And when they did lettering the word balloons, there was a little bit of graphic when it came to, the word balloons, not a lot, not nothing major. And then, things kind of progressed as status quo until I believe about the 90s, and, nothing on the different lettering companies that were out there. But then all of a sudden we had, like you had mentioned about not noticing the lettering, but in the 90s, I think it was a huge push on noticing the lettering, noticing, you know what I mean?
They were like shadows
yeah,
on the
all of a
word
sudden,
balloons,
it became,
right? They were different colors for different characters.
The fonts changed, very graphic fonts that started coming out. And some of them they fit as long as it fits with the story, but like sometimes it was like, why is this one so colored and graphic and why did we do that?
So what do you think, Brent? What are your thoughts?
I can really just speak to this as a consumer, but I will say occasionally when I see that the lettering is being messed with, I'm intrigued, because I'm thinking someone is trying to add nuance to the story with a toolbox that has never actually been considered a toolbox until recently. I remember reading a Tom King comic from several years ago, Sheriff of Baghdad, I think, and he had instructed the letterer to actually, whenever someone was speaking in Arabic, to use an Arabic sort of font instead of the standard asterisk from Arabic.
Yeah.
I actually appreciated it. It felt it gave a depth to the story that frankly, I hate it whenever I have to put in an asterisk, translated from whatever. It feels like I'm pulling myself out of the story in order to explain to someone what's actually happening. I like it if they can kind of pick it up on their own without any extra work from me. No, maybe that's probably too much to ask. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe the more people are confused by changing font instead of a dialogue asterisk box. But I don't know.
I've seen what you're talking about used, and I agree with you. I think it's innovative, and if done right, it does add to the contents of the story. Different cultures, different places on whatever locales for whatever your story is. There's also we've got the minimal things, the silent things that I think comic readers have been around for a long time pick up on. Okay, like basically the basic word balloon. Okay, you just got a balloon with a little tail sticking out pointing at somebody. All right, but then again, when you're describing or you want to put forth what the character is thinking, the traditional balloon has been the cloud kind of thing, and people and the little bubbles or whatever, people instantly get that language, or that visual language. It's what he's thinking, he's not talking, those kind of things. I'm curious, Brent and Jose as well, because I've actually written some stories where I was working with a letterer that I wasn't familiar with, and basically wrote a story only to have the letterer come back to me before getting into doing the lettering and saying, well, you've got these gun battles and gunfights going on in the scene, but there's no special effects words. Do you have any special effects words you want me to put in? All right, and that to me becomes like some letterers can easily do that and just give them directions. Say, hey, whatever you want to put up there for an explosion or a gunshot, by all means, go for it. Okay, whereas others, no, we just assume you come up with something. All right, and then that becomes like this creative thing of how many times can you say bang or pow or whatever, and you're trying to make this melange, this goulash of letters that supposedly will ring in somebody's head as an explosion or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I I like the crash bang pows, Batman 66s, as long as, like you said, as long as it plays in well with the art. You don't want something, if you've got a lot of earth tones in something you're doing, all of a sudden it's bright red and blues. Like that's gonna throw off, like Brent said, with the asterisk, you know what I mean? With the, oh, this is in Arabic, that pulls you out of the story. I think that special effects or sound effects like that pulls you out of the story as well. What I thought worked was, I think, I don't remember, it was Batman Superman Public Enemy that the DC had put out, and it was the return of Supergirl, right? And they had Supergirl speaking in Kryptonian, and whoever the letter was, where they got the font from, it was done and typed out Kryptonian. And the best part to that was at the end of the book. And I have the trade paperback for it. At the end of the trade, they have the alphabet spelled out in Kryptonian. So like, just the idea, like, okay, they didn't give any asterisks. They didn't give any, like, oh, by the way, that she's speaking Kryptonian. It was just the Kryptonian, like, symbols and whatnot, like, throughout until like the end of the book, where, she started speaking in English and whatnot. And like, they never explained it. They never, like, anything until you got to the end of the book, where they gave you the alphabet. And of course I went back and read and deciphered the entire thing and just reread the whole book again. But like, they got me to read it twice. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, oh, I'm reading it and I'm done. I actually got to like go back, decipher it out, and then reread the whole book again. You know what I mean? It was just, that is a fun, like, interaction. It's a fun way of getting me to engage in the story. And I think that, depending on, and like what Brent said about the, more of an Arabic style of font, that really like lends to like keeping you engrossed, keeping you, and even in your head. Like for me anyway, if I read something and it's going to have like a font like that, I'm going to read that character as if, he was Indiana Jones's best friend from,
Well, I mean, the beauty of that is, your imagination is going to hear that dialect.
Yeah.
All right. That accent, you'll immediately start imagining that different than, just speaking English or somebody, or whatever, totally.
You're right.
I mean, what I like to do a lot of times, if I'm using foreign characters in stories, is basically, because I've got a reference library of, Italian, Russian, German, and whatever. And rather than just, translate everything, I just throw in certain words to the point where my characters are with English speaking characters,
right,
and talking with them. But you pepper it with certain words of that language, so that, again, your reader understands, okay, they're trying to speak English, but it's not their first language. And so you throw in a few German phrases and a few French phrases or whatever, whoever your characters are. And you can get through an issue like that, rather easily. It doesn't take a lot. Just like I said,
right.
Go out, buy yourself some reference libraries. And again, if you want to write something that, fans will remember and enjoy, and go the extra effort, like this person did the Kryptonian language. That's amazing.
Yeah, I did a I think it was 4 or 5 page story in art school. And it was, Frankenstein set in World War II. And my reasoning for how Frankenstein was created was it was based off the Jewish folklore of the Golem, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I'm sitting there drawing out, dead bodies and stuff like that from like casualties of war, I got to like the scientists like trying to figure out creating the Golem. I on like the bottom panel, I have a scroll out. I drew a whole scroll out, and I have in there it's in Hebrew. I wrote I went and looked it up and pulled up actual like Hebrew. You know what I mean? Yep. I wrote out in Hebrew, my dialogue that I had in there, which I still keep in my portfolio because I'm kind of proud of it. Like not just the pages I worked on, but they're not, unless you really put the time and effort. And if you're beginning working on comics, I don't feel that it's something you really think about. Writing in a different language to, accentuate what the point you're trying to get across. But at the time, for me, it was I bet if I do that in Hebrew, that'd be pretty cool. like, let me do that. Like, so I did it, and like my teacher like appreciated it, and I was just like, man, it's like that's one of my favorite pages I have in my portfolio that I take to conventions just to show people.
Mm.
Good for you. Good for you.
Hebrew's not easy to write, but
Yeah, no doubt, man.
but it was entertaining. Like, I enjoyed looking it up. Like I said, I looked up the words and how they were written, and I wrote it. You know what I mean? Wrote them down. So
It is pretty amazing. Like even just using Google Translate to pick out some foreign words and stick them in there. I've done that a lot. I've had a lot of foreign locales, especially in Calis, and it does, I believe, add an element of nuance, but also just like your story has more gravitas. I think that you are that you're actually trying to capture a sense of place. So many different places it's really easy to just assume that, you know, if you're in the mountains in Libya, that it looks just like the mountains in Arizona, and I've had to show reference photos for that kind of thing. But it's funny that you're actually also talking about, when you're talking about lettering and word balloons, that you're actually, there is a limited ability to use that to also show your environment. So,
Oh, totally. I mean, we just one of our listeners who just made a comment about using 90s style graphics when doing his lettering on his projects, which I think is kind of cool. There's been we've all seen this huge shift thanks to computers over the last 25 years, and now there are so many computer fonts available.
Oh, yeah.
To creators. Okay, I mean, I remember when they first started showing up, but at the time they were really stiff, very crude. Okay, and it was easy to tell between hand lettering and somebody just cherry picked a font and program and was just sticking things in and whatever. But over the years, they've become a whole lot more sophisticated, and a lot of them look a good deal like hand lettering, a great deal, which I think only adds, all right, to the final, image of what you're trying to, get across. But at the same time, I hope that, again, talking about, your training, Jose, I hope that places like, the Cooper School and even universities today that are teaching graphic art and whatever, right? I hope people continue to keep teaching hand lettering.
Well, I will tell you, like, that's definitely what we learned. I believe it was our first year of school. We were taught, like, you're gonna learn how to letter, and you're gonna, like, I'll be honest, I kind of dreaded it because I'm like, like, I don't know about that, right?
Words. I like
Straight
pictures.
up, my T-square, I still have my T-square. My Ames guide, I still have my Ames guide. It's it's packed up right now, but I still have my Ames guide. And for anybody that doesn't know, Ames guide is this trapezoidy looking plastic guide that has a little dial on it, and you use it to set the depth of your spacing between lines for word balloons. And you would have your T-square against your table or your board or whatever, and just run it down, and it's got markers and guides. You just keep working it down. You draw all your lines. You'll see all your spacings. And we had to do that, and we had to hand letter, and we were told.
I think that's great. I mean,
we could not use multiliners. We had to use Croquill and ink to letter, and we had to do an entire page. And if we messed up, we had to redo the whole thing.
Wow.
I wish we see a divergence today. I think, again, going back and dating myself, when I started in the business, I think most professionals, artists in the business, basically were, whether school or self-taught, did it all. They did pencils, inks, and letters. I mean, maybe one of the few things they didn't do was the actual coloring. But if you got into Marvel and DC and did those other three things, then you were golden. All right. And it seemed to be an established requirement if you wanted to work with the big guys, that you were an artist. All right. I've seen a lot of preliminary artwork with some of the artists that I've worked with over the years. Some of the, again, the older guys who came into the business having to do all these different skills.
Yep.
And it always amazed me because, for example, Gary Carter, my oldest artist buddy, I've seen a lot of his early page sketches, and he would start sketching in soft pencil, right? And then go to lettering. Because basically the idea was he'd have the script, all right, and he'd read the script and he'd, break up his page into panels or whatever, and then do soft pencils into panels. But then he'd go to actual lettering before doing finished inking. And
Right.
you say, well, why? Well, the idea being once he started putting the balloons in the panels, he would see visually, oh, well, this sketch doesn't work because this balloon is interfering with this part of his anatomy, or I need to be like this or that. So he would literally put the balloons in, then he'd ink and letter, then go back and redraw the images around the balloons, and then ink. All right, and that's how.
Because when you did it by
whole-
hand, when you
Right.
did it by hand, you had to know where your word balloons were going.
Exactly.
Because nowadays you do it, we do lettering digitally, and yes, it's significantly faster, and you can get really good clean lines and whatnot, and you can just throw the the word balloon over the art that's already there to rearrange it and get it worked out. But back in the day, they had to know where their word balloons were going to go before they finished the art.
Oh, they were craftsmen. Okay, I mean, they were multi-talented. Believe me. All right, to create and envision a page, right, panel for panel, page for page,
Right.
and whatever. And I think to a point, letterers today, or I mean, even there are a lot of artists today who haven't a clue on how to letter. All right. And I mean, these guys are professionals. They're doing books or whatever, and they're doing beautiful artwork. All right. But a lot of times, not knowing how to letter, right? They'll finish a page, send it to a poor letterer who then has got to make it work with the script and, whatever. And it's sad because I think it's a lost art in a lot of ways in that process. And I think it's something that every penciler should have at least a rudimentary ability to understand.
Oh, absolutely.
When they're drawing,
We have some comments in here. We have Bo Greasley. Lettering creates the experience just as importantly as the art does. We recently learned of its importance thanks to the advice of an experienced letterer.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
that's absolutely correct.
Yeah,
And then Acres of Movies, excellent font talk. Thanks, Acres. Also, Acres, font and hand lettering is key. Hand lettering, like anyone who wants to letter, anyone who does artwork, I feel should take a lettering class or
Amen.
really do the legwork to research it and look it up and really like find your references, talk to somebody about it.
Yeah. One of the local artists here in Fort Collins that I've worked with in the past, and I mentioned him to you, Jose, in the past, is another Cooper graduate, and that's Zane DeGain, right? And I get a kick out of that because you can tell that classical training, because we get together one Saturday at a local comic shop because they have a cafe and a bunch of us get together, and guys show up with whatever projects they're working on. So I happen to have some artwork that Gary had done recently, and I had copies of it. So I bring it in, right? And Zane comes in, and I say, I've got some artwork Gary did. He said, oh, let me see it. So I hand him the pages, right? And I mean, he's looking at the pages, and the first thing he does is, oh, that lettering is beautiful. That's awesome. And it's just like, I just appreciated that so much, right? One artist appreciating another artist, right? And he's like, oh, I love hand lettering. He says, it's just great. It's classics. Yeah, again, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
Like I remember first week that we were starting to work on our lettering, even just penciling it. Like we had to pencil it first before we inked it in. Like, man, my hand got crampy. I'm not even gonna lie. It's just because I'm like, I want to get this right. I want to get this right on like the first go. So I'm like really like trying to like, keep my everything straight, keep everything like even throughout, and then you realize as you're doing like just A's, B's, B's, you realize the whole time as your letters start leaning and curving, then you're like, oh no.
I tell you, like I said, you get to the point where, like I said, after doing this, for so many years, the idea is the more I came to understand and appreciate that art of lettering, the more it made me self-aware. All right, a lot, and that's never changed now. All right, there was a major shift in how I approached the script. All right. And what I did with as far as dialogue and captions. All right. Now, more so than ever before, really aware of what I am, basically handing off to somebody else who's going to have the challenge of making that, married to the art. And it makes me tend to really write a lot more economically than I did years ago. Way more. Okay. I'm still concerned with the story. I'm still concerned with, what I want to get across. But I'm acutely aware that, hey, words take up space.
Right.
They take up space on the page. So
like,
hey,
valuable real estate for your words,
yeah,
for your your captions, your thought,
Yeah. As succinct and pithy as you can get, by all means, in a comic book, that's gold. All
right. Let's see. Another question by Acres. What is your favorite comic logo or design and letterings?
What do you think?
I mean, I actually liked the like in regards to like logo. I like the headers that were created for the X-Men books during Age of Apocalypse. They were meant to look a little more gritty, a little, you know what I mean? Was Astonishing X-Men. The X's were like had sharp points on them. I don't know. I just thought they looked really cool as compared to the standard Uncanny X-Men, across the top and whatnot. I thought those were cool.
You guys remember Grant Morrison's run on X-Men where he used the logo New X-Men, which you could actually you could flip it upside down. It would say the same thing.
Still say New X-Men.
Yeah. I always thought that was pretty clever.
I think I appreciate horror logos.
Yeah.
Okay? I love horror logos. All right. Because basically you just stop doing block letters. Because like you've got, like the letters start melting like blood or whatever. The letter gets creative. All right. And then you get like these fingers coming out of an F bar or something, it's like, horror lettering to me seemed apt to get really creative and make something moody before you even start reading the story. And those are the kind of logos I always appreciated.
See, and I can appreciate the amount of detail and technical work that goes into sci-fi lettering or sci-fi lettering, sci-fi titles, sci-fi fonts.
Yeah.
Like those are interesting to me just because I don't know if I have the patience to do that myself. But I'm just like, I would just bubble it out. I would, like just some of the ideas that I've seen online. And like we said earlier, there are several websites now that you can actually go to download different fonts that people have created. Another thing we learned in school was how to make our own font. So we actually were able to do our own lettering, and then we would take that, scan it in, and actually turn that into our own font.
Cool. Very cool.
Mine weren't pretty. I just want to put that out there.
Well, I think the thing, especially with what we're talking about with logos, is basically logos more than anything else demand a really good sense of design work. For a letterer. All right. And, because we're talking about that. And I can remember when I started working on Battle Beyond the Stars, Beyond the Stars, not Battle, but Beyond the Stars for Silverline. All right. I just had that title, but we just, we just threw that off to Mike Belcher, who was on board to letter the series. Right. And Mike developed the logo for it. And I remember the first time I saw the logo and I thought, wow, that is really nice. He did a super job with that. All right. And he has a knack for that. Mike
really does.
he does his own lettering, and he's easily one of the best letterers out there today. All right. And he does a lot of design work, especially in creating title logos and whatever. And he seems to always get the right one for whatever the theme is, whether it's horror or science fiction or Mask Avenger or whatever. He's a talented dude.
All right. Let's see. I have more comments.
Oh, by all means.
I know, right? Let's see. For sure, but it's all about how it cascades down the page. Seriously, lettering is the last advantage that American comics have over Japanese manga. Interesting. I'm not a manga fan. I can't say I've necessarily read manga. Maybe I don't think I have. But yay, advantage for us.
Well, from the little I have seen, okay, again, by all means, not an expert on any of this, okay, but I remember back in the 70s when First Comics was on the scene, and First Comics started adapting the famous Lone Wolf and Cub series in this country, okay. And yeah, not much has changed in regards to lettering as far as manga comics are concerned. They put so much emphasis on their artwork, all right, and the motion of it, all right. Because I can remember, I mean, Lone Wolf and Cub was a samurai, comic book about this guy, traveling this Ronin samurai, masterless samurai with his son in a baby cart, okay, and basically you get this idea of when the swords are flying or when they're running and the speed lines coming out, and those are the things I remember the most from manga. But the lettering was just like basic balloons, basic balloons with words. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that could have easily been the English translation that we were reading in First Comics or whatever, but it didn't seem to me like there was a lot of attention, all right, given the lettering. All right. It was just, this is the workman part of this process. And again, like 99.9% of the focus is on the artwork itself. And maybe that's what this gentleman's talking about, because maybe again, it's quite obvious if you read American comics, French comics, British comics. Again, like us, there's a lot of emphasis and thought given to lettering, and it's obvious and you see it. But manga, no, not so much.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And Abo also says, when it comes to American comics, we are focused on the wrong criteria. I for one, would be interested to know which is the wrong criteria. And then Acres of Movies says, the new horror movie Goner has interesting lettering. They're raising money for its marketing budget next year. Also, another one called Native Harmony has a cool font. I have not seen any of those, but I'll look them up. And Acres also says, I want a new font revolution and all new fonts. I mean, make it happen.
Why not?
Yeah. Make it happen, Acres.
Yeah. I mean, look, if it can be creative, and like Brent said, okay, if it can add to the overall experience of the story itself, then I'm all for it, by all means. All right, let's use the technology we have, right? And like as I mentioned earlier, we've gone leaps and bounds in creating fonts today, all right, that look absolutely beautiful, stunning, and do the job they're intended to do. So yeah, hey, the more the merrier, I say, okay? The thing is, the caution here with this discussion is don't cross that line where the font becomes the center stage, takes the center chair away from the art and the story and everything else like that. I mean, if it's just a matter of, wow, cool font, it's not why I'm buying a comic book, guys. Right. Sorry, hate to burst your bubble, okay? But I'm buying a comic because I want to read a visual story. And I want the font to be an integral part of that visual experience.
Right. As long as it balances in with the
not
story,
if it's in my
the
face.
dialogue, and with the art.
Yeah.
Yeah. It if you get, like, I would caution new letterers to stick to the rules until you have them down pretty well.
Right.
Then feel free to maybe experiment a little bit, but don't go crazy with every, tool you have in your toolbox. It's kind of, when you see a first time film editor do work and that they're basically just showing off all the really cool transitions they just found in Final Cut Pro. And it just looks like it looks silly. And but when you see, a transition in a film where you're startled in a good way and it enhances the story, then you applaud the editor. And I imagine lettering is similar. You've got a lot at your fingertips.
Wise words, Brent. Definitely. All right. Learn to crawl first,
Right.
okay? And then to walk and then to run. And then, hey, have at it by all means. But yeah, learn the basics. I mean, it applies to drawing, to writing, and whatnot. All right, learn the basics first. And then, hey, experiment, show us what you got. Definitely.
Yeah, but like you said, it's anything new for somebody. You know what I mean? I'm guilty of this as well. You learn how to do something, you want to do it. Oh, I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna do it here. You're gonna put it in everything. And it's those times like that really you're like, oh, like somebody who is more experienced than me is like, oh yeah, that guy just learned how to do that. That guy just learned how to make explosive word balloons or whatnot because he's putting them in everything. But I mean, like, I learned how to make word balloons in Illustrator before I went to art school, but going to art school helped me learn how to do it correctly. And not make them correctly, but use them correctly instead of just like, oh, blah, 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 spill all over the page, and
yeah, I remember thinking I should totally just get a new computer in a program and just letter my own books. I think I know how to do it. And then I just got an inkling of what letter is doing. I'm like, yeah, no way, man. I think I'd rather lean into the skill set I've got instead of like think
Right.
I can just phone in a new one, and then suddenly I'm in a morass of trying to learn something that is a serious skill set. So
Well, I enjoyed learning the letter. I even enjoyed hand lettering. I won't do it in the future, but if it ever calls upon it, I at least have a basic rudimentary experience and skill in it. Doing it digitally, obviously, I feel it's faster. Everything lines up the way you want it to line up. I mean, it just, to me, it makes it a little easier, but I'll leave it to the experts. I'm no Mike Belcher. I'll leave it to Mike to do the lettering.
yeah,
But it's definitely something like at bare minimum. Like, I'm not trying to dissuade, but at bare minimum, learn it. Like, learn how to do it. I feel that you should learn how to do every aspect of making a comic book. You may not be an artist, but at least understand the process of narrative storytelling. You know what I mean? Learn the process of paneling. Learn
Right.
every aspect of it. So if you are a writer, then okay, I understand. It's not just like word here, action. You learn how to make the dialogue flow. You learn how to make the paneling flow when you're writing your scripts and stuff like that. Like, truly, like, if you want to make your own comic, learn every aspect. You may still outsource it. You may still outsource the writing, the coloring, whatever, but at least you know what the process is, what it entails, and how to appreciate the help you're bringing in for it.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's a point where you do something long enough, all right, over a period of years, right, and learn. You make mistakes, you correct, you go on, you try again something else, make mistakes, go on, try something else, whatever, right. And for me, I think one of the sharpest curves in writing, and that's my example of all this, is that, like, 20 years ago, after like 30 years of writing and just writing, right, Rob and I started Airship 27, And next thing you know, we're asking, for solicitations. And I mean, we're talking prose short stories now. We're a publisher. So we're asking for short stories, novellas, and full-length novels, which I am going to read and edit.
Right.
Okay. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty much on the job training as an editor. Can I pull this off? Right. It really didn't take me all that long, within a couple of years of running Airship 27, to begin to see all those years as a writer and working with editors who were teaching me, all right, that if I was working with young writers, it was like deja vu. It was like, oh yeah, this is the way I wrote 20 years ago. This is the way I wrote 25 years ago. This is what she's doing wrong, or what she can be doing better, or this is their strengths, and identifying those kind of things. All right. To the point where then it became a case of I'd get submissions from people like myself who'd been around writing for 20, 30 years, and you'd read their scripts, their manuscripts, and it was like, I don't have to touch this at all. So you start to identify, all right. And as an editor, that's a great, insight to have, that when I get submissions now, I say, right, it's easy for me to tell within a page, 2 pages of a story or a prose story, if I'm dealing with somebody who's been published and been around for a while, or a new kid on the block who's flexing their creative muscles and trying to get into this game or whatever, right? And I've come to really love editing, specifically for the fact of it's given me an opportunity to work with some super talented young writers. And basically every now and then just come back and not so much change what they've written as make suggestions on, this chapter, you could have done this and that, all right? Or, the way you laid out the plot, you could have done this a little bit better, blah, 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 and work with them and watch them develop over a period of time. And the more submissions I get from them, it's a rush to see how good their talent progresses and how they get better and better at it. And hopefully I'm learning from them to be an editor as much as I hope I'm teaching them some writing skills as well that I've learned along the way. So I think any kind of creative endeavor like that is it's always great to stretch yourself. It's always, great to, okay, so yeah, I've been a contributor, I've been this or that. Let me try being an editor and see what that's like and what the rush is with that, right? And honestly, sometimes I feel much more satisfaction in publishing other people than seeing my own work published now. It's a rush. I remember going to a comic convention many years ago, and Roy Thomas was still working for Marvel Comics. And he had just become Stan Lee's assistant editor at Marvel and been doing it for about a year. And somebody asked him about, do you appreciate editing or do you miss just being a writer? And he pretty much said, I love editing. I absolutely love it.
Interesting.
And he said, honestly, he says, if in 20, 30, 50, 100 years, people look back on this period of time and say, who or what was Roy Thomas? He says, I hope they remember me as an editor. Whoa. There you go.
That's crazy. The idea of being an editor, just for me, it just seems like so way up here. Like, I don't know. Like, I enjoy being my part of the compartmentalized job, right?
Okay.
And not even just pencils, not even just inks, but like it wouldn't even matter. Like, hey, Jose, you're working on pencils in this book. All right, cool. I'm gonna focus on right here. But like an editor, like they have to kind of focus on all the aspects. They have to be able to like have kind of their toe in everybody's pool. You know what I mean? to try and
about them though is that they know. I've worked with a couple of editors enough to feel like they know, like they're a reason why they're an editor and I'm not.
Right.
Like, I'm a writer. I think I'm a decent writer, But I also know, as a writer, I'm full of my own blind spots and proclivities, bad habits, all this and that. I need someone to point those out to me.
Right.
So I love it when I work with an editor who can actually say, this isn't working. And I'm like, ugh. And I fix it almost every time. So I kind of dig
Almost every time.
Yeah.
And we're talking like that. I mean, aside from, there's one thing to edit prose, all right, to be a publisher and edit short stories and novel manuscripts. But over the years, I've also had the fun of putting together comic book teams that I wrote, and I got artists and letterers and colorists together. And that's fun. That's really a ball if you can find the right people. And once you get the team established, is start getting a sense for who's who, what their personalities are all about, how they work together, what, their individual picadillos, if you will. All right. And making that work. I mean, over the years, all right. I mean,
Right.
I'd heard stories of some of the great editors of Marvel or DC, all right, and the amazing work that they did in working with battling egos, all right, because we fans would just get the comics and read them and think, this is a great comic because the guy's a great writer and the artist is a great writer and these guys are awesome and, it must have been a blast, blah, blah, blah. And you don't give the editor much thought. But later in years, and again, like we've talked, I'm not going to name names here, but I know for a fact several of some of the best loved comics of the 80s, all right, were literally done because of an editor who wrangled two opposing egos and made them work together because they hated each other's guts. The artist hated the scripts. The writer hated the artist trying to change them all the time. And this poor editor was getting calls at midnight by one or the other, bitching about the other one. Right? And somehow or other managed to make it work. Okay. And nobody knew. None of his fans or whatever. These comics sold through the roof. Right. Right. Yeah. So it's like, editing is a unique skill all of its own.
I believe that. I completely believe that.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. I've mentioned before that one of my favorite comic book, like floppy comic book series was DC Comics. DC Comics presents the who's who of the DC universe. And all it is regular floppy 22, 24 pages. And on each page, sometimes two on a page, it was a character from the DC universe, what issue they were in, their bio stuff.
I've got those. Oh, yeah.
I'm missing 6 to complete the entire series, right?
Ooh.
And I've been collecting them for years. And I could easily go online and find them and buy them, but I'm trying to find them all organically, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I had mentioned it in art school that was one of my favorite series and that I loved it. And I would love to see another one made. And I don't remember which teacher told me, but he's like, that'll probably never happen because it was such a pain in the neck for the editor or editors, right, to just collect all the artwork, collect all the dialogue, all the text stuff, just to try and collect it from everybody all at once. Like they'll never do that again. And I'm like, that's kind of sad. Like I would love to do that. And that would be, I think it would be cool to have one like that for Silverline. And I'm not sure if I ever brought that up to El Jefe, but yeah, like that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, just the idea, like, and then he, like, after he said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see how that would be a pain in the butt, right? Excuse me, George Perez, can you please send that artwork in? I kind of need that now. Excuse me, Mandrake, can you blow up? You know what I mean? So I totally understand that. I like after he said that, I was like, yeah. I guess from a fan's point of view, you don't really think about that. Like you said, just like lettering in books, you really don't focus on it. You really don't pay attention to it because we're just here enjoying what is spilled forth for us. Yeah. But like all the stuff like behind the details and whatnot like that, I get it. That's what I'm saying, I guess. But as an editor, like, man, I'm not sure if I could do that. If I'd be able to pull that off, but it would be fun, I guess, to at least try once, maybe. Down the line.
It is funny how those editors stuck. The runs that you're talking about, Ron, that are so iconic. were overseen by editors who didn't immediately quit as soon as the run was over. Just liked it enough to keep it up. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Totally. But yeah, there's always and that, you know, that I love it. It makes you laugh a little bit, but I've always loved the story behind the story. Okay. Right. Anything that you find that you enjoy and brings you entertainment, satisfaction, all that good stuff, and then finding out the process behind it. All right. It's like I get such a great kick out of that. All right. To see the creative hurdles that people have to meet, the challenges they have to overcome, and how they do that. You know, that whole process fascinates me. Absolutely.
Right. And it doesn't even have to be like overly dramatic. Oh my gosh, like blah, 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 blah. No, just the idea is like, oh yeah, we were talking about this over a drink, something, a can of Coke spilled, and all of a sudden Shazam was created.
Right. That's so true. I find those things. Yeah.
Not to say that that's how Shazam was created. I'm just making a point. But yeah, just the idea of that, just like, you know, knowing a little bit of the backstory, or even for me, Lee Weeks taught one of our classes. He was one of the co-teachers, and he brought in this Daredevil story he did, like the pages from the Daredevil story, and he's like, oh, like you're not supposed to line your panels all up like that. But I was like, what's gonna happen? They'll fire me. Like, if they don't like it, they'll just fire me. You know, I'm gonna try it anyway. Or the idea of like the Hulk, like a double page spread where the Hulk is walking on the bottom of the ocean, dragging a sunken ship behind him. You know what I mean? It's like, I decided to draw a fish. I threw a couple fishes in there. Like, it doesn't even make sense, but you know, we'll see what happens. And just like knowing that, like after reading those issues, and I went out and bought, like, because I didn't have it before. I'd read it before the Daredevil storyline that Lee Weeks did, but after that, I went out and bought it. I went looking for it just to find it, just so I could have it, like to look at it. You know what? Okay, I get what you're talking about. Yeah, like just knowing like that backstory for that was just absolutely phenomenal.
Yep, it does. It does add something to it all.
All right. So, all right. Yeah, we're getting close to the end. I wanted to share one more comment that Abu Grizzly posted up in regards to lettering and in agreement to something that Ron said. So precisely, if we can't get the reader to enjoy the experience without noticing the lettering, you failed, bro. So that is definitely something Ron had mentioned earlier in the stream, and you know, I think it holds true. Like, if you know, you want lettering to be there to help tell the story that you know that you have coming forth, but you don't want it to be so overpowering that, you know, it deviates from the art or from the story itself. You don't want the lettering to be like showcase, you know what I mean? The grandstand, I guess.
It's such a delicate balance. Again, like we're talking about, and like I did with my little example, it's lettering marries the art and the literature.
Right.
And that's, I think, why all of us love comics so much. All right. It's that one together, you know, experience that you can't have in separate elements. All right. I mean, you want to get an art book, go get an art book. You want to read a novel, go read a novel. All right. But where do you bring those things together and enjoy them at the same time? Right. Comic books and lettering is the marriage. Lettering is that glue that makes it work.
I agree. Any final words, Brent?
Nope.
I think Ron summed it up pretty good.
Just basically explained lettering. That should be lettered.
There you go.
Very important.
All right. What do you say?
Everybody, we have been That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Catch our other streaming shows on Wednesday Whammers at 9 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, Silverline Sunday at 8 o'clock on Sundays. And next week, I don't know what we'll be talking about. Hopefully Tim will be back to let us all know.
Until then.
So yes, until then, make mine
Silverline.
Hi, I'm Dave Dorman. Make mine Silverline.